Welcome everyone to the Mind, Body, and Soul television show, coming to you live from ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com, as well as YouTube Live and Google Hangouts. And I'm your host, Coach Steve Toth, and also the founder of Conscious Evolution Media. And our guest this afternoon is this very, very interesting guest who's joining us from Idaho. Her name is Angela Levesque, and she's an author, mind-body educator, as well as an energy healer, and I'm sure many other things, which we'll find out about shortly. Welcome to the show, Angela.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start the show like I always do, which is, if I took away all these titles, like an author, a mind-body educator, an energy healer, a wife, maybe a mother, friend, colleague, all these titles that people have called you all your life, if I take them all away, what's left? Who is really Angela Levesque?
Ooh, that's a tough question. And actually, I was thinking about that today. You know, the idea that words are symbols, and as much as we don't like to be labeled or identified, it gives people a kind of quick and cheap and easy way to understand somebody. Oh, this is who they are. And I was thinking about, you know, that as I was working on or reading somebody else's bio today. And if you took away all of those things, I guess at the center I would just be love and light, I guess.
Okay. That's.
I think we all are at our center.
Yeah,
so.
That is a great answer. Absolutely. All right. So let's just dive into the subject matter. You know, our theme today is conscious creation of health, and I love what you do, because conscious health is. You know, one of our channels, actually, all of our channels, and I'm not going to repeat them all right now, but one of them is actually health and wellness, and it's conscious health and wellness and the evolution of our conscious health. And I just want to tee this up a little bit different way. So there's three things I want to mention, and then I'd like your response to this, Angela. So we have, I think, effectively destroyed our food supply. We don't, you know, everybody goes out and eats at least 2 or 3 times a day, but we're not getting any nutrition. The soil in the earth has been destroyed. We have done a great job in the last several decades by putting all the chemicals in it. So what we're getting out is not something that's I could call healthy. So we've done a great job regarding fast foods and all the processed foods in the stores. So that's a huge challenge. We have done not so well with the air that we breathe as well, and I think we all know why. And we've done the same thing with water. There are things in our water that we shouldn't be really drinking. So with these three things that I just mentioned, where do you stand on those issues? And how do you think we should begin this conversation or dialogue so that we can give a lot of solutions to a lot of viewers?
Well, this is such a soapbox issue for me. As you know, I have a radio show, and I try and bring on as many guests as I can that talk about, you know, the degradation of our food supply, talk about environmental toxicity, water, and it is just such an overwhelming thing. But the thing that I talk about in my book is that it's the same things that heal the body that heal the world. So let's look at food. Our food is a perfect example for this, because as you said, we have these lives that it becomes very conducive to living out of balance. So we rely on fast food, and of course, fast food is not only horrible for our bodies, which I think most people know, but it also nothing has fundamentally changed our food supply more than the evolution of fast food and how much it's grown, and it has changed our methods of food production in such horrible ways. So
and it's not. I want to just interject, Angela, it's not real food. It looks like food and it tastes like food, but it's not real food.
And we have a whole, you know, society of people walking around who are overweight, but at the same time malnourished. And that is it's such a huge pervasive issue in our culture. But when you think about it, especially with food, that's where we have the most opportunity to make changes. Because when we change the way we spend our money, we change the the marketplace. And so we, along with education, there has to be a level of awareness. And I teach a lot on, making meaningful change. And fast food is a really good example, because I'll say, one of the reasons I don't eat fast food anymore is because I am environmentally active. And once I realized that, living sustainably is so aligned with who I am, it made it very easy to make that decision not to eat fast food. Because not only do I know it's bad for my body, but it's very aligned with my ideas of environmental sustainability. So when we
so are you at the point,
talk
Angela,
about food and air,
Angela, hang on for a second. Don't lose your thought. Are you at a point now
Yes.
where you are not even able to go into a McDonald's, let's say? Like even if you think about it, you can't do it.
I can do it, and I think part of that too is the consciousness behind it. When I appreciate and I understand, because I'm an energy healer, when I know that any degradation to the energy field at any point is also affecting my energy field. And so when I go and I eat food that has been processed more like a like a mechanism, the way that we do our commercial food production, when I think about which is how they feed the fast food industry, it makes me too sad to eat nuggets or a burger that has 4,000 different cows put in there.
It's engineered food. It's not cooked. I want to make sure that viewers understand this. There's no people working somewhere in a factory where it's being cooked like the way we cook food. It's engineered food.
It is.
Yeah.
And one thing I like to remind people, when you have that breakfast sandwich that's the maple flavored, there was no maple syrup that touched that that sandwich. That is all designed in a food lab made of chemicals to stimulate all of these brain centers that make you want to go back and have more. And it tastes like maple, but there's no like you said, there's no real food content to that. And it's a problem that our food is being engineered, as you said, and not cultivated and grown in fields in a healthy way that's good for the topsoil, that doesn't pollute our waterways. And but going back to, because I like to give people real life solutions, is think about your values. What is it in your heart that you value, and how can you make choices? How can they talk about being the change? Well, how can you make choices aligned with that? And food should be a really big ticket issue, because whether you're a parent and you're worried about the nutrition and health of your child, or you want to be able to, you're a grandparent and you want to be able to play with your kids, there's all of these things. And so the more that you can bring it back into your heart, the more that you can bring it back into a level of, how does this align with my values? And then you go out and you create that change that you want to see. Not only is that incredibly powerful for your own sense of personal power, but it changes the marketplace. And so in that sense, that one person does help to change the world.
Yes, and I of course agree with you. And our if you look at our logo, it is a heart, and the Earth is in the heart. So I finally changed the shape of the Earth. This is the third time. It used to be flat, round, and now it's heart. But here is the thing. What's going on is that people are not informed, and they're not aware that when they're going into these fast food restaurants, what they are being served. They think it's real food, and because it's also made to look really good, they spend enormous amount of time and energy making sure that it looks good and it tastes good, but it's not real. And if people don't know that, they're not going to be stopping before they go into a fast food restaurant and think about, is it something I should be really doing?
I absolutely couldn't agree more, but I think when there's a whole population of people who are going in there and they still know that it's fake food. So I think you have to reach people where at their level of consciousness. So if you start to get those people, I find a lot in the work that I do, I'm always preaching to the choir. I always, like I used to run the Boise
like
chapter.
You and I right now. Yeah, we totally understand each other. There's nothing you can say that I haven't heard before, and vice versa, right? pretty much.
Absolutely. So if you start to, if each person starts to make that change, and we start to get that population that's going in there that already knows it's not good for you, because I think it is quite prevalent or in our consciousness, quite at the center of our awareness that a lot of fast food is unhealthy. And so if we can start to shift those people, of course, there needs to be awareness campaigns, public service announcements, and all of that. But I think that we need to get the certain portion of the population that already knows that there's issues with that to start shifting, because the number one consumers of fast food are middle-income families, and so
let me also provide some context and contrast here. So do you know, for example, what's the budget of McDonald's for television and marketing?
No, I have no idea, but I'm sure it's huge.
It's $2 billion.
Wow.
This is an annual budget. So, so when people are watching television, and the average American, quote unquote, and these are the ones also that are going into McDonald's, knowing that it's not good for them, watch anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of television every day. So these commercials come on every 8 minutes now. So that is what's going on in reality. And then we have, and that's one grouping of the population. And I don't know exactly, I haven't looked at any recent studies, how many people are in that group and how many people in the group that you and I are in, that, I don't watch television, very selected shows that I watch, and I certainly don't watch commercials. So what's that grouping like? But I think you and I can comfortably say that our group is much, much smaller than the others. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't even think it's an 80-20. It's probably like a 95-5, and I'm probably off. It's probably even smaller. So if that's what we have going on, okay, and here I am, our shows are on public television on PBS, and I'm attempting to raise money from the public to have these shows go onto PBS, and not nobody, but very, very few people are putting their hands in their pocket and supporting this. So how do we change? How do we change people's mindset? And how do we help them to become awake when financially nobody wants to support what you and I are doing?
That is a $1 million question. And, one of the things that I think we have to be careful of is I don't think that we can change other people. I think we can change ourselves, and I think that we can shine and be the biggest, brightest light that we can be, and take those opportunities. For myself, that was one of the reasons I started my radio program, is I wanted to be another voice out there that talked about these things, such as what the work that you're doing and so many others are doing. But I think it's really difficult when you start to want to impose stuff on other people. And I know that is something that you want to do. I have this quote in my book that you can't spread democracy through invasion. So as soon as you start to take that and want to impose that, you're going to get resistance.
And I don't want to impose, and I don't even want to change anybody. I came to this realization many, many years ago, Angela, that the only power I have is to change me, and I'm being an example. And that I'm working on my stuff. I'm still a continuous improvement project, because I'm not exactly at my weight where I want to be. But when I started out, I was at a lot worse situation, and I was diabetes is something I've been dealing with, and so but now this is years later. I'm not eating fast foods. I'm not drinking pop. I'm exercising. I'm doing all the things that I know is good for me. So I am doing this by leadership and by walking the talk. I'm not doing it by telling people that you should do this because I say so.
No, and I think that too, is not, whenever we talk to people when I talk to people about changing lifestyle choices like, exercise, diet, and as soon as they start to go from a place like, well, I know I should do this, I talk to them and I say, you're not ready for it then, because when you should do something, you don't own it. It's not part of you. And so I love, and none of us are perfect too. And it's funny, somebody heard once that I had a cheeseburger, and it wasn't a fast food burger, and she's like, oh, you ate a burger? And I said, yes, I'm still a person who, it's not about complete abstinence, it's not about perfection, it's just about doing the best that you can for yourself. And ultimately, back to your question, that's how we just, like I said, be the shiniest, brightest light that you can be, and live what you talk about. And I believe energetically that shifts the consciousness of the people that we talk to on the radio publicly, the people that we talk to in our personal lives, and then when we go and we, like I said, align our actions and our values and our hearts, and we go out and we purchase things very heart-led and purposefully and consciously, that starts to shift the marketplace. And when they talk about, tipping points, they say it only takes about 10% of the population. So, you said you don't even think we're 80-20, but maybe we're we're close honestly, to that tipping point.
I don't know where we are. And it's kind of funny because I went to one of those reconnective healing weekends.
Yes.
And what I heard throughout that program is completely shifted how I think anymore. Because I used to think that what was going on was really this 95-5, and the way I think of it now is the 95% that's out there are really open, and they have it in them. It's just a matter of the right timing, being at the right place and being at the right time for them to make that shift. It's like an experience of transformation. It can happen for anybody in a moment, and you just don't know when that moment is. So I don't think of it anymore as, oh my God, there's all these people that are not awake and not conscious and they're just operating as machines. I think of it as every human being out there in the world is ready. The only question is when they are ready. This is on their clock, not on mine or yours.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And we don't know, and that's why I love doing these shows, and I'm sure you too, is because I have no idea who's watching. Not that I need to know, but I'm sure that our shows are being watched and listened to by many people that are ready and many people that are not, and that's fine.
It is. It's. I think it's perfect in that sense that, and you never know. You can hear something over and over again, and then somebody just presents it in maybe a slightly different way, or like you said, at the perfect moment that you're just open and receptive to hearing that message, and all of a sudden, aha, And I think
that makes a difference. Yeah.
And I love that I'm still experiencing aha moments all the time, and there's times I'm talking to my guests, and all of a sudden I just am, just wow, something just clicks inside me, and I understand it in a whole new way, and it's kind of like layers of an artichoke, where you continually, you're always going through different layers and layers and layers, and ultimately there's this beautiful center that, we may or may not ever get to, but that the more we understand that it's there, I think that to me is why we're here.
Yeah, right on. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about. I think we have effectively presented what the problem is, so let's talk more and focus more for the rest of the show, on the different solutions that you may have in your toolbox that you use for yourself and for others that you help and coach.
Well, I talk about, my book is called Healing Environment, and I call it that because it's about healing the environment, the larger environment, but I also talk about the 5 things that you can do to create the optimal healing environment in the body. And when I talk about healing, it's not just about curing something or getting rid of symptoms, but it's really about allowing yourself to experience that you are mind, body, and spirit. And, even saying the term mind, body, and spirit now, because it's used so often, it kind of becomes unhearable, but it is really, it's that coming to that sense of wholeness where you know that you're more than just this physical self, and that you have this beautiful core essence that is love and light and all of that wonderful stuff. So I talk about the 5 things of the optimal healing environment, and the first one, as we just addressed, is obviously eating real food, a whole foods view of life, and whether that's whole foods and you're a vegetarian, whether that's whole foods and not a vegetarian, it's really just eating real food and understanding how your food choices affect the environment and affect the body. And I think that's the thing too, is once you start to look at it, how does things affect you physically, but then making it bigger. How does this affect my community? How does this affect, the larger environment? And as soon as you start to do that, you start to bring context and meaning to it. And when you start to bring context and meaning, that's when things become enduring. And then that's when it becomes, you get to that point where you can't even buy a McDonald's cheeseburger anymore because it is so it's so incongruent.
It's not congruent. Yeah, it's not congruent with, it's amazing. You use the same word. It's just not congruent anymore with who we are, and I've experienced that. I can't. I mean, I look at McDonald's and I remember how good the French fries tasted, but no, I can't do it. I just can't do it.
And see, now when you move from that space, it's not from this place of lack or sacrifice. It's from a place of preference, because you're like,
it's not. It's what my spirit is telling me. And this is a good way, I think, to connect to what you said. My spirit is telling me that this is not in my best interest.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so, of course, Whole Foods is the first one. And the second one is creative movement. And this, to me, is not, in physical activity, moving the body. And it's so interesting. We talked about being conscious health. To me, running on a treadmill while watching television is not nurturing or fulfilling, or it might get the basics
because we're not connected.
Exactly.
We're disconnected.
Now you take that run and you maybe take it outside, and all of a sudden you find that place where your breath and the needs of your body are in this perfect balance, and you come into this very Taoist-like state, and you feel the breath and the pavement under your feet, and that's a completely different experience than running on a treadmill or reading a magazine or watching television. And so that's really, really important. And I always urge, if you live in a place where you can go out and be with nature and make it as mindful as possible. Notice the colors of the flowers, the smells, how does the breeze feel on your body, all of these sorts of things, that you're really just being in this present moment. You're really connecting to that. And there's these healing aspects outside of just the physical, activity of moving the body and the effect on the physiology. There's this, there's healing and beauty and connection and, running in a park with your shoes off, and all of those things help make us more connected. And so that's the second one. And
that's beautiful.
I'm really big
I just want to. Can I add something to that?
Yes, absolutely.
I remember, Angela, when I was really not conscious, and I didn't hear the birds chirping outside, and but they were there then, and now I do hear them, and I'm going like, wow, what's changed is not my environment. I changed.
And it makes such a difference, and there's so much more joy in that moment when all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, and you can hear the birds, and some are deep and some are high-pitched, and then, you notice the smell of the leaves and the grass, and it's just such a more beautiful experience than, just wearing your headphones and, just zoning out. So that is the next thing. So eating well, moving your body, these are all very common sense things. And then stress. Dealing with stress, having some, actually not just a single outlet, but multiple outlets for your stress. And when we employ stress reduction techniques, whether it's having a bath or meditation or whatever it is, it brings our awareness into the present moment, and that has multiple effects, not only on our physical body, on the physiology, bringing it into a very calm state, but it also has effect on our emotion and our clarity and our ability for problem solving and creativity and all of those things. So there's so many different levels of benefit.
Angela, where do our stress come from?
Well, most of them are mind-made, which is the interesting part. They talk about the stress response and how, it adapted. We Through evolution, we had it because we had very immediate stressors. But now our stressors are, uh, you know, feeling like we're under a time crunch, like there's not enough time, and yet we still continue to build all these things in our life that our time sucks. We spend our lives staring at screens. We're always accessible now, which is very stressful. Knowing when the latest text come in, the latest email, all of that is just hiking up our stress level. And there's a statistic that 90% of doctors' visits are either directly related or exacerbated by stress. And yet there's this almost how do I want to say it? There's almost this, like, you're successful if you're so busy, kind of. We equate busyness with success. Like, oh, I've got so much going on right now that I can't take a moment. And again, on the very physical level, obviously it has an incredible impact on the functioning of our bodies. But when you're in a stressful place, you can't concentrate. It makes us inefficient and ineffective in our daily lives. And so when we employ stress reduction techniques, they bring us back into our center, bring us back into this present moment. And of course, I'm a huge fan of meditation, so I always try and urge meditation, but it's not for everybody. So finding multiple outlets, whether it's a aromatherapy bath or going for a walk or a run, or whatever it is, again, looking within inside yourself, what is it that I need? How do I bring myself back into balance? I'll have people.
I get massages twice a month.
Wow, good for you. That's amazing.
And I love them.
Yeah, no, and that's, again, really the fact that you've gone within, you say, what do I need? And you found something to match that need. So often I'll have people that are really driven and go, very kind of type A personalities, and then they'll go to a yoga class, but it'll be a super intense, high, power style yoga. And instead of bringing themselves back into this sense of wholeness, again, coming back to balance, they'll do something that amplifies, their personality or their response. And so, quiet, contemplative walk. I think everybody needs to have some sort of stillness practice in their life, in whatever fashion that works for them.
Yeah, and meditation is fantastic. Yeah.
Yes, and again, not only for your physical body, but my book came to me in a meditation. My radio show came to me in a meditation. There's so much information, and when we talk about the field of consciousness, and when you can calm your mind and open your heart, all of that information's there for you. And so, huge fan of that. The next thing, when I talk about the optimal healing environment, is right thinking. And this isn't just about positive thinking, although positive thinking is very important. It's also about being consciously aware of your thoughts. I teach a class on
language, right?
Yes,
the words that we use.
Exactly. Like I talked about, people will say, "Oh, I should lose some weight." And as soon as you say should is a very non-empowered word. Paying attention to the language, paying attention when you look at yourself in the mirror. Are you saying, I'm worthless, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that? And that has a very real effect on the body. We have our thoughts, and we have an emotional response that creates the biochemistry in the body, which creates the same behaviors, and ultimately we get the same outcomes. And then we repeat, and then we repeat, and we create the same things over and over again. So now you stop the thought, you become aware of the thought, you maybe change the thought, and that changes the whole cascade of events that follows. And you create new neural networks in your brain, and all of a sudden, these habits that you thought were just part of you can now be shifted, can be changed, and you can create all sorts of new wonderful things in your life. So it's not just positive thinking, but it's about being very consciously aware of your thoughts.
Awesome.
And the next one, the fifth one, and I think this is where things get really cool and our human potential lies, is being aware of ourselves as energetic beings. And that, spiritual or energetic, whatever word, but just appreciating that we are this very connected web of life with all people out there. And going back to our conversation at the very beginning, changing the way that you show up automatically changes the energy of the relationships that you have, and the way you show up in the world. And just understanding, I teach community education classes, and I talk to them about consciousness, which is a huge topic, and lots of people have no idea what I'm talking about. And but I take them through heart-opening exercises, and imagine expanding your heart out into this field, and how does that change the way that you act when you really understand, not just as an intellectual concept, but you can really experience the idea that we are connected, that idea of oneness that's been imbued in every religion that on this planet, and how does that change the way you act when you know and you experience our oneness versus it just being something that we talk about.
Awesome. So how do you, because I actually started a show 3 years ago that explores this subject, which is because a lot of people don't understand. I mean, people have talked about consciousness for hundreds of years, but in terms of having an experience of it and feeling it, is a different experience, like you said, just to talk about it. So, 3 years ago, I started this show called Living Consciously TV, which is really about showing the public what consciousness looks like and feels like. And the way we get to it is that we check in with ourselves when we feel that we are no longer connected. So it requires kind of an ability to manage our conscious and non-conscious being. How do you experience that, Angela, for yourself? Like, how do you catch yourself when you're out?
I'm getting not always, that's for sure.
Me either.
I'm getting better at it. One of the things is really paying attention to your emotion. And whenever I'm feeling a very strong, especially a strong negative emotional state, I'll be like, okay, what part of me right now is being challenged? What false belief or what belief am I holding on within myself that is creating this very strong, palpable emotional response? And that is one way for me to understand. Of course, another way that I connect with that is through meditation, and just lots of times if I'm unsure, I really literally put my hand over my heart, and I just take some conscious breaths, and then I just ask myself the question, is this really, aligned with, is this congruent with who I want to be? And I just ask myself. But yeah, no, lots of times I don't catch myself. We live in a crazy world with so many things vying for our attention that sometimes, even people who try and be conscious, we end up being unconscious. And I think that is I think that's also the beauty of life and why we're here.
Yeah, I agree that our environment can pull us into unconscious situations where we no longer have control of ourselves, but then we can regain control. I mean, it's just this whole field is so interesting to me because I'm continuously. What it is for me is curiosity. I'm so curious, how this thing called consciousness works, because, like you said, it's a feeling thing. I know the same way when I'm reactive. When something is going on and I'm reacting to it, I know who's reacting is not my higher self. It is my ego that's reacting. And then how do I take control back? How does Steve, the loving, conscious human being, takes back control from being disconnected and just living by whatever the ego wants to do? Does that make sense? Am I being clear enough?
Absolutely. And you talked about the language, acting in the same way off of those conditioned, the programming that we have going on in our brain. And yeah, no, it absolutely makes sense. And as soon as you appreciate that, then you just stop and you bring yourself back into the center and just say, consciously now, and that's it. That's the whole, you said you wanted to talk about conscious health, and that's what we're talking about is, okay, now in this moment, I can choose very deliberately if this is how I want to act to this situation, and that's different than reacting. Sometimes doing the same thing over again, it serves us, and in lots of cases it doesn't. But like you said, I think that it's so important, just those emotional cues that we have that help us really understand what's going on inside of us.
Yeah, I more and more appreciate now, Angela, when I react to somebody, I kind of train myself that I don't go into blame, that they're doing it to me, because they're not doing it to me, I'm doing it to me. and I just go inward and examine, and there could be sometimes there has been heated situations where I have to excuse myself because I can't just deal with it in the moment. I need to say, I need to come back to this conversation at a later time, so can we reschedule this, because right now I'm just not being effective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading up about emotional intelligence yesterday, and that was one of the questions. If you're in a heated argument, how do you respond? Do you want to stay and spar it out, or do you, that was a very emotionally intelligent response that you had to appreciate. And when our egos get bruised, sometimes it's very easy to move into the space of victim or blaming them. And as soon as I know that, I have to say I'm not always as wise as you, though. Sometimes I want to stay and prove that I'm right.
I'm not always wise either. Believe me, I mess up plenty, and but I don't blame myself. This is just I just recognize that I'm in training. I'm continuously in training, but I have a different mindset now, because people that upset me, this is weird. This sounds corny, but I actually appreciate them for what they're doing, because they're bringing it to my attention. They're bringing what's off within myself to my own attention so that I can do something about it.
I love that. Actually had
So I kind of, in a way, I kind of love them for it. Isn't that weird? It's like, thank you for upsetting me, because now I know what's going on. And isn't it true that, this experience of life has to be that when we, and I don't know if you even get to this place, maybe it takes several lifetimes to get to a place where nothing upsets us anymore.
I don't know. I don't know. I always, when I hear you say that, I think, though, that there's a certain amount of, when we look at the kind of the flip side, there's passion. And I don't know that I hope that things still upset me, and I hope that I can still continue to learn, because to me the flip side of that is being able to live a very passionate life, which is important.
Yeah, well, maybe I need to say it a different way. It's not necessarily about having nothing to upset me. It maybe has to do more so with other human beings having not giving them the power to upset me, and that's a healing, I think, within myself. So I think there may be a place in my life at some point, I don't know if it's this lifetime or not, where it doesn't matter what anybody says to me, I'm not going to react, because I am more centered and more grounded and more healed, like I'm truly healed. Isn't there? Do you think there is a place like that where you're just healed and you're not going to react to anything or anybody other than, I don't know. I have mixed feelings now, the way you described it. I have mixed feelings, because if we don't get reactive to something sometimes, I agree with you. How is that going to bring out how are we going to bring out our passion? Because I am passionate about what I'm doing, like what I'm doing with you right now. I'm very passionate about these shows. I'm very passionate about consciousness. I'm very passionate about being being in broadcasting, I mean, it's a very passionate thing for me. But if there is no conflict, what would that be like?
I don't know. I think we're getting to a really deep point in this conversation, because maybe as we talk about the end game of being an enlightened being, that I guess that duality, it doesn't need to exist. But you said something when you restated the second time about choosing not to give away your power, and I think that is an important point in the conversation. Is you can still have feelings, and but you're not giving away your power in that, having reacting to that person. And I think that is I think that's an important distinction that you made the second time. But I think, as we talk about enlightenment, and I said knowing ourselves as energetic beings, that's really where our human potential lies. I think it is being able to move past that duality, and maybe that's all that it takes, is that we can just see that that we are stuck in this duality, and that we can choose not to move in that reactive either or place, but can be an end and an inclusive place.
Yeah, so let me run something by you, because I played with this throughout the years, and it's about, you said duality, and I am recognizing that almost everything we do on this planet it becomes reality in duality. Oh wow, that sounds interesting. But everything has an opposite, and the reason why we know what we know, or we're experiencing what we're experiencing, because there's a context. We can distinguish good from bad, love from hate, blah blah blah, right? So what if, and so let me just use a stronger word. Let's take peace and war. So right now in the world, there's lots of places where there's peace, and there's lots of places there's war. So what if we could take the energy of peace and war, and instead of, because what we as human beings have learned to do is to, I feel, is to directly what's the word I'm looking for? Like, have the two energies, war and peace, fight it out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And we do this with everything else. And
red and blue, yeah.
What if instead of doing this, we can point war, the energy of war, and the energy of peace, and create a third point, like a triangle, and that would be, I would call that creation and possibility, creating a new possibility from the energy of war and peace. Instead of having them fight it out, use their energy, because they're both very powerful, and one doesn't exist without the other, right?
That's a really interesting idea. Honestly, when you started setting that up, I was thinking that you would be creating more, I guess, more of a circle, and allowing, instead of having that energy being trapped in either or as concepts, but allowing them to open up in such a way. But having that third point, I don't know, that's a bit of a, I'm going to have to think about that one for a while.
And maybe it will end up in what you're talking about. Ultimately, maybe it will end up, the energies will dissipate in a circle, but maybe the next step, I don't know. But right now, this is what we got. So going from this to a triangle, it could be just an intermittent step, and something that we could learn and experiment about, and that would be really manifesting just new things and new possibilities from existing energies, and then who knows what happens next. But I do get your point that ultimately it's probably a circle, but I'm not sure that we can just jump from this to circle. I don't know, maybe we could.
Maybe we can. Well, I think part of it, for me, we both live in the United States, and the red versus blue, the Democrat versus, I like to think
it's everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, those dualities seem a little bit more manageable to me for war and peace.
Left party, right party.
Yeah, but it goes back to that thing of being conscious, and neither one of those ideologies satisfies anybody in their life, right? They just align themselves with one because either that's what they've always done, or
because we got to pick one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But shifting that conversation and that perception from, does it have to be either or? Can we, God forbid, like some of the things that are conservative or like some of the things that are liberal, and really just open up that discussion at being a conscious person and saying, you know what, if I look at this and I look at my values, and there's certain things that I love about this and there's certain things I love about that, and instead of always creating that, like you said, the clash or the two opposing energies, just opening up that conversation. I think that happens through conscious choice and opening up your heart and saying, hey, what is it that I really believe, other than just following one party or the other because that's what we've always done, or and it's not helped at all in our media, because they totally pit every, if you look at Fox News or MSNBC, and it's just, they're just making the whole thing a dichotomy. And anyway, so I don't know. To me, it comes back to just being conscious and aligning your heart, your values, and your actions. And that's how we open up that conversation. But want more.
So yeah, I'm wondering what would this. Yeah, so I'm wondering what this would look like, just if you could toy with just for a minute, with this. So for example, in terms of, like, let's say the government, we know that it's broken. We don't need to pick on them, but let's say, earlier in the show I was talking about, because the way I kind of live my life, it's fairly simple nowadays. I run my life based on listening to my higher self and asking the question: is what I'm about to do, or what I'm about to put in my mouth, is that in my best interest? Yes or no? And I do get the answer. And my ego doesn't. As soon as I start talking to and acknowledging my higher self, my ego automatically stands down. Isn't that interesting?
I love that.
Yeah, and so then I get the answer, yes or no, and if it's a yes, then I'll do it. And then I have a way to check it, double check it. Not that I need to, but I'm still a little student here, so, I got to check it. So how I check it is based on how I feel. So if it feels good, I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger and do it. If it doesn't feel good, I won't do it. So with that, and this is two very simple concepts. How would it be like to run the country that way? Is this like totally outrageous and out of the box? I know you like to do things out of the box, and that's why I'm going down this path. This is completely outside of the box.
It is, but I think they're important conversations. I don't think in our current system, the way that it's set up, it is not a conscious, empowering system. Mm-hmm. I think that too many people, I think that our government, our media puts people in a place of fear, scarcity, and lack. And so to have those kind of conversations, I don't think that's what you're talking about is my utopia, is where I would like to see us go when we have people who are much more conscious in what they're doing. But in our current state, I could see President Obama, asking his heart, and people would eat him alive for that, And especially in our kind of science.
Well, they're eating him alive anyway. What's the difference?
Yeah. Exactly, I guess. But, I think, as we talked about, the current system is broken, but what if even something crazy like we brought in mindfulness trainers into the Congress and had them lead them through before they started every session to debate whatever bill. We had somebody come in and just have them do some conscious breathing so they could connect and create this beautiful resonance. I wonder, how much would that change things if they were connected on a level that maybe even would probably be unconscious for most of them, but still they would have that connection. I don't know.
Well, would they be open to that? I don't know.
And that's one of these are our challenges. How do we take these concepts to people how do we present them in ways that they're going to resonate with? Because you always, whether you're a writer or a healer, whatever you're doing, you have to meet people where they're at. Because if you start, somebody comes to see you for stress reduction, and I start talking about their spirit guides, they're going to go running out of the the room. But then there's people who come and ask me specifically about that. So it's about meeting people where they are and being able to use a language that resonates with them, and not in a disingenuous way. But I think there's many different levels to discuss these topics: consciousness.
Well, yeah, and what I like about this conversation, Angela, is that a lot of people, especially if you listen to the media or watch the media or whatever, they all just like to be complaining, but nobody has any solutions. And what we're talking about, or if they have solutions, it's the same type of solutions that already has failed. It's just rebranded, remarketed, renamed, whatever. But what we're discussing here is these are solutions that could be utilized immediately. I mean, it's like there's not even a lot of training required.
Yeah, but I would like to, I know we're close to that. I want to just reiterate that each person has that power, right? Top-down solutions, there's red tape, there's all of that, and I think those still are part of the solution. I still think that on the big levels of government or media or whatever, that we still need to have those conversations. But on the ground level, there's still so much that each individual person can do, and that starts with asking yourself today, what is it that you value? Lots of people think that they have an idea of what it is they value, and then you ask them, and they're kind of, what is it that you value? And then look at the choices in your life around your nutrition, around your exercise, around all the ways that you spend your money, and are those reflective of the things that you care about? And then when you start to make those choices reflective of the things that you care about, you start to build this power within you that is, when I talk about personal power, it's the energy of transcendence and transformation, and it allows you to go out and be effective and creative and beautiful in whatever fashion, whether you're a cashier or you're a banker, whatever it is, that you can show up and bring that light to every single person that you touch. And so that I think there is solutions at the top, but there's so much at the bottom, and that's where we get people empowered and inspired and just moving out in their life. And it just starts with those little incremental steps of, okay, here's what I value, and this is how I'm going to express those values, which is ultimately their essence and their heart in my daily life.
Fantastic. I couldn't think of a better way to complete the show. Angela, you were absolutely fantastic. I loved being with you.
Thank you.
This was so much fun. It was so easy, and this is getting easier and easier with the people that are joining with us on our network because we're so much alike. The laws of attractions are 100% at work. So thank you so much for presenting these passionate solutions about conscious creation of our health. It's very important. I can't think of right now anything more important than our health. Our health system is in big trouble, and we have more Walgreens than McDonald's. So let's take all this to heart, and I'm just gonna make a request that everybody takes what Angela said to heart, and see what comes out on the other end. So thank you so much again, and let's make sure that everybody keeps watching these shows, especially this one, so that we can take it to public television, make a difference at a larger level. And thank you so much, and I love you all, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place, on Mind, Body, and Soul TV. Bye. Thank you.